They say writing is what separates civilization from chaos. But what if a script was found so isolated, so cryptic, it seemed to whisper from a lost world? Welcome, curious minds, to another shadowy journey with black thread mysteries. Today, we journey far across the South Pacific, to one of the most remote inhabited places on Earth, Easter Island. Here, etched into ancient wooden tablets, lies a riddle that has defied scholars, linguists, and even cryptographers for over a century. The Rongorongo script. Now, you may have heard of the colossal stone Moai statues, silent sentinels gazing inland, carved by a people whose origins remain partially hidden. But hidden in the shadows of those giants is something arguably even stranger. A series of mysterious glyphs, looping, curling, animal-like figures and abstract patterns that form no known language. No one knows for sure how to read them, why they were made, or what secrets they might contain. The story of Rongorongo began to emerge in the 19th century, when missionaries arrived on the island and reported seeing locals with inscribed wooden tablets. Some claimed the natives could chant or sing what was written on them. But by the time researchers arrived to collect the tablets, something tragic had happened. The knowledge of how to read the script had seemingly vanished. Elders no longer remembered. Oral traditions were lost, and all that was left were these haunting glyphs carved into wood, often with obsidian tools or shark teeth. At first glance, Rongorongo appears like a system of hieroglyphs, each sign beautifully arranged in horizontal lines. But here's the twist. The text runs in a unique direction called boustrophiton, meaning that alternate lines are read in opposite directions, like the path of an ox plowing a field. Imagine decoding something where every other line flips direction and orientation. That's not just unusual. That's nearly unique in human writing systems. Even stranger, many of the figures repeat, almost like a chant. Man, bird, fish, spiral. The glyphs seem to portray movement, maybe even ritual or narrative. But without a Rosetta Stone, scholars have nothing to compare the script to. Linguists attempted to link Rongorongo with Polynesian languages. No clear match. Some tried mathematical analysis to find recurring patterns. But the more they dug, the more the script resisted understanding. Only 26 known Rongorongo tablets survive today, scattered in museums from Santiago to St. Petersburg. Each is precious and mysterious, and none are complete. Some were used as firewood. Others were repurposed. The tragedy is that the script may once have been widespread, recording genealogies, religious rites, or even astronomical data, only to vanish before it could be preserved. In this video, we'll dive deep into what we know and don't know about Rongorongo. Could it be the only native writing system ever created in Oceania? Or was it inspired by outside contact, perhaps from the Spanish or Peruvian expeditions? Did the islanders invent it on their own? Was it sacred? Was it practical? Or was it simply symbolic art misinterpreted as writing? Stay with us as we examine the myths, the archaeological clues, and the wild theories. Because while the glyphs may be silent, their mystery is louder than ever. It's often said that the moment of discovery is also a moment of loss. That couldn't be truer for the Rongorongo tablets. When they were first reported by outsiders in the 1860s, the script was already fading from living memory. But who found them first, and what was their reaction? In 1864, a Catholic missionary named Eugène Ayrault arrived on Easter Island. He noticed something peculiar in the homes of the Rapa Nui people. Wooden boards covered in intricate carvings. At first, he thought they were decorations or religious items, but soon he realized these weren't random patterns. They repeated. They had rhythm. They had structure. What Ayrault had stumbled upon was no ordinary carving. It was a script, a system. Ayrault wrote in his reports that the islanders owned these tablets in abundance. Some could chant their content, though none claimed to read them in the way we understand literacy today. He assumed the practice was dying. And he was right. Within a decade, smallpox, forced labor raids, and missionary interventions had devastated the local population. Much of their cultural knowledge, including the meaning of Rongorongo, was lost forever. But here's the strange part. No one had recorded any written language on Easter Island before this. Captain Cook had visited in the 1770s and noted nothing about writing. Earlier explorers also made no mention of it. So where did this script come from? And why did it suddenly disappear just as it was discovered? Some historians believe Rongorongo was a post-contact invention. They argue that after seeing European writing, the Rapa Nui people may have created their own symbolic system in imitation. But this theory doesn't sit well with everyone. The glyphs are far too complex and standardized to have emerged in just a few decades. Plus, there's evidence of the script being used for ritual or religious purposes, which suggests a much deeper cultural root. Only 26 surviving tablets are known today, each given names like the Santiago staff, the London tablet, and the small Santiago tablet. These relics are held in major institutions, and their provenance is often murky. Some were traded, others taken, and many were damaged by time, fire, or neglect. The loss is staggering. If just one intact tablet with a translation key had survived, we might have unlocked an entire lost world view. Most tablets are written on driftwood or reused canoe planks, and the glyphs were carved using shark teeth or obsidian tools. Their style is distinctive. Figures shown in profile, birds with curved beaks, humans with exaggerated limbs, abstract swirls and crescents. Many glyphs appear to be composites, half man, half animal. This has led some to believe the script had a mythological or ceremonial purpose. Yet, not one tablet has been definitively translated. Not even close. We can't tell if they are alphabetic, syllabic, ideographic, or something else entirely. Most attempts at decipherment rely on guesswork, patterns, and cross-referencing with oral traditions that are themselves incomplete. To complicate things further, the missionaries who first preserved the tablets didn't always keep them safe. Many were lost or misfiled. Others were stored without proper documentation. Some researchers today are trying to recreate fragments using high-resolution scans, hoping that advanced imaging might reveal faded glyphs or correct reading orders. But it's still like trying to read a book with no known alphabet, and every other page missing. The discovery of Rongorongo was both a breakthrough and a heartbreak. We found the symbols, but we lost the voices. What remains are puzzle pieces scattered across the globe, still waiting to be pieced together. Imagine standing before a door carved with symbols. The shapes are familiar, birds, people, plants, but their meaning is locked. That's what it feels like to look at a Rongorongo tablet. The script is visually rich, teeming with detail, yet maddeningly silent. For over a century, scholars have tried to break its code. So far, no one has succeeded. But that hasn't stopped theories from pouring in. Some believe Rongorongo is a form of proto-writing, symbolic rather than phonetic. It wouldn't represent sounds or letters, but ideas or rituals. Others think it might be a syllabary, like Japanese kana, where each symbol represents a sound plus vowel combination. The problem is, without a bilingual key, we're left in the dark. In the 20th century, a Hungarian scholar named Thomas Barthel created the first full catalog of Rongorongo signs. He identified about 600 distinct glyphs and labeled them systematically. His work became the backbone for almost every future attempt to decode the script. But even he admitted it was like trying to reconstruct a vanished language from fragments of dreams. Barthel noticed patterns, repeating glyphs, loops that mirrored chants, and sequences that appeared at regular intervals. He theorized that the tablets might include lunar calendars or genealogies. And in fact, one tablet, known as the Mamari tablet, seems to track lunar phases with startling accuracy. Could Rongorongo be a record of astronomical knowledge? Other researchers explored the possibility that Rongorongo encoded prayers or chants. Some glyphs appear alongside others with clear rhythmic structure, like a song. There are clusters where the same character repeats, interspersed with slight variations. Could this be poetic or religious language, similar to hymns or mantras? Some bold claims emerged in the 1990s. Russian linguists tried to match glyphs with the Rapa Nui language. Before Rongorongo was inked into wood, it may have lived in voices, in chants, stories, and sacred songs. Easter Island's cultural heartbeat was oral, passed from elders to children in the form of myths, histories, and rituals. And while the glyphs remain unread, the island's surviving traditions might hold subtle keys to understanding what was once known. The Rapa Nui people have long maintained stories of a powerful chief named Hotu Matua, said to have led the first settlers to the island from a far-off land called Hiva. In their cosmology, the world was woven together by divine forces: sun, moon, stars, birds, spirits. These elements echo in the Rongorongo glyphs. The birdman figure appears often, along with solar rays, crescent moons, and humanoid beings with animal traits. Could these symbols be the visual companions of oral myths? Some researchers believe so. For example, the island's annual birdman competition, once a central ritual, involved elite men climbing cliffs, swimming to an offshore islet, and returning with the season's first egg of the sooty tern. This ritual, filled with sacred symbolism, featured a prominent deity known as Make, possibly referenced in the glyphs as a masked or sun-headed figure. Some Rapa Nui descendants say the tablets were once read aloud during ceremonies. They weren't public texts, but sacred objects held by wise men known as Rongorongo experts, or Tangata Rongorongo. These individuals trained for years to memorize chants and meanings associated with each glyph. The tablets were not just written records, they were vessels of memory and power. But in the 1800s, the chain of transmission broke. Diseases brought by Westerners devastated the island's population. The Peruvian slave raids of the 1860s abducted hundreds of people, many of them elders and knowledge keepers. Christian missionaries, though often well-meaning, When a mystery this deep touches the surface, it doesn't take long for the world to come knocking. After the first Rongorongo tablets were brought to Europe in the late 1800s, the race to decode them quickly turned into a centuries-long obsession. Linguists, cryptographers, amateur historians, and conspiracy theorists alike tried to solve what became one of the greatest undeciphered scripts in human history. One of the earliest scholars to study the script was Wilhelm de Havesi, who in the 1930s proposed a controversial theory that Rongorongo had striking similarities to the script of the Indus Valley civilization. Though his comparison was speculative and lacked strong linguistic support, it caught attention because both scripts were linear, undeciphered, and featured human and animal-like figures. The idea that two completely disconnected ancient cultures had similar scripts stirred up imaginations and debates. Decades later, as computers emerged, researchers used statistical methods to analyze the glyph patterns. Some signs appeared to cluster at the beginning or end of lines, suggesting grammar. Others repeated with rhythmic spacing, hinting at a poetic or ritual structure. But even with digital power, the lack of context made everything feel like decoding a language without knowing what language it is. In the 1990s, Russian linguists Sergei Ryabchikov and Konstantin Pozniakov pushed for a deeper phonetic reading. They claimed the script encoded the Rapa Nui language and began offering rough translations. According to them, some glyphs may correspond to words like God, chief, fish, or moon. Their theory suggested that the Mamari tablet could contain a lunar calendar with religious references. Still, critics argued that these attempts are too speculative, lacking consistency or independent verification. Meanwhile, the world of alternative theorists. If you're still watching this far into the mystery, you're a rare kind of curious. Drop us a comment below. Tell us where in the world you're watching from and what time it is right now. Let's see just how far this ancient island's riddle has traveled. Now, let's imagine for a moment. What if we could decode Rongorongo? What truths would rise from those wooden lines? Would we discover prayers, laws, or warnings? Could it be that the tablets recorded prophecies or ancient astronomy? Or were they historical records, like shiplogs of the first Polynesian voyages? Many scholars agree on one thing. If Rongorongo was a writing system, it likely wasn't used for everyday communication. The labor involved in carving with obsidian or shark tooth was enormous. This wasn't a casual script. It was sacred. It took time, effort, ritual. Some tablets are polished and carefully incised, suggesting that only elite members of society, perhaps priests or nobles, could create or access them. In fact, several glyphs appear again and again in patterns that resemble names, titles, or spiritual phrases. There's even a theory that some of the tablets were funeral records or ancestral registers, lists of important events tied to the spirits of the dead. If true, each tablet might be a tombstone of language, preserving an entire lineage in pictorial form. Others argue that tablets may have tracked lunar and solar calendars, aligning with ceremonies like the Birdman contest. This idea gained ground after researchers observed recurring sequences that matched lunar cycles. Could it be that the islanders used Rongorongo not only for ritual, but also for organizing life, harvests, navigation, festivals? A fascinating interpretation by some Rapa Nui elders suggests that the script wasn't meant to be universally readable. Instead, each tablet may have had a specific owner who alone knew its chant or mia. In the old days, deciphering ancient scripts relied on ink, magnifying glasses, and sheer patience. Today, we're using machine learning, 3D scans, and artificial intelligence to solve ancient puzzles, and Rongorongo is no exception. Could our modern tools finally break a script that has resisted interpretation for over 150 years? One of the most promising approaches today is high-resolution imaging. Scholars now scan the Rongorongo tablets using advanced laser and multispectral equipment. These scans reveal minute carving details invisible to the naked eye. Even slight pressure marks, blade slips, or worn grooves tell a story, sometimes showing glyphs that had faded completely or were previously misidentified. Digital models allow researchers to rotate tablets, zoom in on curves, and even digitally enhance patterns that have been damaged by fire or decay. Every new layer uncovered gives us better data, and better data means better chances of decoding. But gathering data is only part of the process. Several universities and private teams are now using AI to analyze glyph sequences. By feeding the known tablets into machine learning models, researchers can identify statistical patterns, how often certain glyphs appear, what symbols cluster together, and whether some glyphs function like verbs, subjects, or objects. One project, led by a team in Canada, tried teaching a neural network to recognize recurring structures across the tablets. It flagged possible sentence boundaries and suggested certain symbols might act like grammatical markers. While these findings are still early stage, they suggest the script does follow rules, and rules point toward language. Another method involves comparing Rongorongo with other known Polynesian languages. Could the glyphs represent phonetic components of Rapa Nui or other Pacific tongues? So far, this hasn't yielded a full breakthrough. Though the script itself remains unreadable, the spirit of Rongorongo is far from forgotten. On Easter Island, called Rapa Nui by its people, the carved lines of the ancient tablets still hold power, not because they are understood, but because they endure. In modern times, these silent symbols have become a source of identity, pride, and sometimes pain for the Rapa Nui community. For years, Rongorongo was treated by outsiders as an academic artifact, something to be preserved in museums and examined under cold lights. But for the people whose ancestors carved those symbols, they represent more than mystery. They represent loss. Colonization, disease, forced religion, and abduction tore apart the cultural fabric that once held the key to those glyphs. To many Rapa Nui, the script is not just an ancient puzzle, it's a stolen voice. In recent decades, local artists, historians, and educators have begun reclaiming that voice. Rongorongo glyphs now appear on murals, clothing, jewelry, and educational posters across Rapa Nui. Though the meanings remain unknown, the forms have become symbolic of cultural resilience. Each looped bird, each coiled arm or masked figure is a declaration. We are still here. There's also a movement to teach the Rapa Nui language in schools and restore traditional chants and songs. Some of these oral traditions may carry echoes of what was once spoken alongside the glyphs. By nurturing the language and stories, the people are keeping the soil fertile. For the day the script is finally understood, some locals are even involved in research efforts. Collaborations between Rapa Nui community leaders and foreign scholars have begun to replace the old model of distant study. Tablets that once sat behind museum glass are now being scanned, shared, and interpreted with input from descendants of the people who carved them. But there's also caution. Many no great mystery survives without attracting strange answers. When conventional methods fail, the imagination takes over, and Rongorongo has attracted its fair share of bizarre and controversial theories. These ideas often blur the line between curiosity and conspiracy, but each tells us something about how deeply this script captures human fascination. One of the oldest fringe theories claims Rongorongo was not created by the Rapa Nui at all. Instead, it suggests the script originated from ancient travelers, either shipwrecked Asians, lost South American civilizations, or even voyagers from ancient Egypt. This theory hinges on visual similarities between Rongorongo and other undeciphered or symbolic scripts like the Indus Valley signs or early Chinese oracle bone writing. Proponents of this idea argue that Easter Island, despite its isolation, may have once been part of a transoceanic knowledge route. They point to long-distance seafaring by Polynesians and to tales of lost continents. But these comparisons are largely superficial. Just as spirals appear in both Celtic and Maori art, shared shapes don't always mean shared origin. Then there's the Atlantis theory. Some claim that Rongorongo is the remnant of a language from a lost civilization, swallowed by the sea. According to this view, Easter Island is one of the final outposts of an ancient global culture that vanished in a cataclysm. This theory often ropes in the Moai statues too, casting them as clues to a forgotten technology or cosmic alignment. Of course, no ancient mystery is complete without extraterrestrial speculation. Some believe that Rongorongo was not made by humans at all, but by beings from another world. The strange looping glyphs are said to resemble alien scripts described in alleged UFO encounters. Supporters of this theory argue that the sudden appearance of the script, and it's equally sudden. So here we are, at the edge of a mystery that refuses to be solved. We've traveled from carved driftwood on a remote Pacific island to cold museum vaults, from ancient chants lost to time to digital code that tries to listen where ears have failed. And still, the question hangs in the air. What were they trying to say? The truth is, we may never know, and that might be the most haunting part of the story. Rongorongo exists in a space between presence and absence. We have the script, but not the voice, the message, but not the meaning. It is both artifact and echo, a language carved into wood and memory, stubbornly silent in the face of every attempt to revive it. But in that silence is a strange kind of power. The glyphs compel us. They invite imagination, demand humility, and confront us with the fragility of knowledge. How much of human history is lost, not because it was never written, but because no one remained who remembered how to read it. That's the real lesson of Rongorongo. Not just the mystery of what it says, but what it represents. A civilization's effort to preserve, to communicate, to carve something lasting into a world where nothing stays the same. The script is a symbol, not only of what was lost on Easter Island, but of what all of us are always in danger of losing. And maybe that's why it continues to fascinate us. In a digital age where everything is recorded, archived, uploaded, and forgotten in seconds, there's something deeply moving about a story that survives in silence. About words we can see, but not hear. It reminds us that knowledge is never guaranteed, that the past is fragile, and that every mystery unsolved is an invitation, not just to understand others, but to understand ourselves. So if you felt that same chill, that same pull toward the unknown, don't let it end here. Like this video if it made you think, and make sure to subscribe.